What's up, everyone? Ben with the BTC Sessions here, and this is your daily session.
HODL that Bitcoin.
Now, I've had a very nice influx of new subscribers over this past week. In fact, last week was a little insane. Those of you unfamiliar, I did a thing where I ended up scamming a scammer. Somebody's trying to scam me out of Bitcoin, and I turned it around and I got them to send me Bitcoin instead, which I then just donated to Bitcoin Venezuela and blocked them. Anyways, I thought it was just a funny little thing, and I put a blog up about it, and media went insane. And so I spent most of the week last week doing media interviews and radio and TV and all that. So wild. Thanks to everybody that shared that. But that's not the point of this episode. What I wanted to break down was since I've got some new people here and some of you may be relatively new to Bitcoin, I wanted to go through some of the stuff that I think can be relevant and helpful as you navigate the waters of Bitcoin and try to get the best education that you can. And so I'm going to go through a bunch of the things that I think are very important that you should take a look at. There's a lot of stuff here, so don't feel like you have to hit all of this right away. Take your time, be patient, let it come, and just enjoy the ride. And so with that, let's dive in. First thing I want to talk about is learning. Now, there's lots of ways to learn about Bitcoin. Obviously, YouTube is one of them, and that's probably why you're here, but there are some other ways as well. And so I'm going to start with some books that are worth taking a look at. Number one would be, of course, the Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous, and this covers the economic case for Bitcoin to become kind of a global sound money / world reserve currency, and how it can possibly not fall into some of the same traps that the gold standard led us to. And so this is a great read. I recommend everybody take a look at this and read through it because it gives you that solid foundation and litmus test for bullshit, because there's a lot of bullshit in this space, and it can be tough coming in, hearing about Bitcoin, and then having people throw a million other coins in your face, and you just think they're all the same. They're all face value. You know, they're worth looking at. And in most cases, it's just totally not. So I recommend reading this, and that should give you a little bit of a foundation to base it on. Now, for the technical side of things, we have Inventing Bitcoin. Now, this book here, I've got it actually right in front of me. Ooh, sorry, knocked the mic. I've got it here. Now, it's a pretty small book. It's actually not too long. It's about 96 pages. It gets more into the technical side of how Bitcoin was able to achieve this kind of peer-to-peer global currency, what it's capable of, what its limitations are, so on and so forth. So I recommend checking this one out. A very good one. And one more we're going to take a look at here. And this one is for the kids. This is Bitcoin Money. And I'd say it's for a slightly older age group. So for sure, grade school. There's quite a bit of writing in here, but it is obviously illustrated, so it is for children. Not that I didn't enjoy it myself. It's actually really good. But it gives that foundation of the difference between fiat currencies that can be printed into oblivion versus a sound money. It makes reference to gold and paper money and so on and so forth. So highly recommend this. My daughter is pretty young, but I will be reading this as she gets older. So that one, again, you can find here. It is, hide. Okay, there it is. Bitcoin Money, The Tale of Bitville, Discovering Good Money. So yeah, excellent book. Shout out to the Bitcoin Rabbi on Twitter. That's the guy who wrote this book. Now, what about podcasts? There are a lot of excellent podcasts out there. I'm going to recommend 3 that you should take a look at. First of which is Tales from the Crypt. This is regular listening to me. Shout out to Matt Odell and Marty Bent. These guys are awesome, and they typically have a couple different episodes a week. Depending, but usually there's an interview where Marty will interview some guest on whatever topic they decide to cover, and then they have Rabbit Hole Recap, which I love, where they go through whatever happened the past week, so all of the current events, their hot takes on it, and explain some of the inner workings of what may have happened. So I can't recommend this one enough. These guys are awesome. I got to meet them, and solid listening. Up next, Stephan Livera. He's based in Australia and he focuses on Bitcoin and Austrian economics. Now, the podcast itself is not necessarily all on the economic side of things. They do get into some more technical stuff depending on the guest, but all in all, really solid. Highly recommend you listen. And finally, I really like what Bitcoin did with Peter McCormack. Now, the host actually got some shit from hardcore Bitcoiners recently for not always being only Bitcoin. But I actually like seeing the progression that he's gone through over the past couple of years, where he started with just interviewing everybody, every person who had, a coin in a project, and then starting to whittle it down to mostly Bitcoin, and coming to the point where recently he decided, no, that's it. Only Bitcoiners, it's all focused on Bitcoin, mostly just because he thinks that's where the innovation is, that's what's important. And so I've really enjoyed watching this progression, and I like the way that he approaches the interviews because he doesn't assume that the listeners just know everything. He's coming from his own standpoint of wanting to learn and asking those types of questions. And there's a lot of questions that he asks that I think to myself, oh man, I for sure would have wanted to ask that question, but I would have been worried to ask it. He just goes ahead and does it. So I really appreciate kind of the accessibility of this podcast. Now, in the same line of thought of focusing Bitcoin only, I recently, about a month ago, wrote a blog about my path to Bitcoin maximalism, which is essentially focusing Bitcoin only and thinking that that's the important innovation here. And so I kind of go through the history of the gold standard and the qualities that I believe only Bitcoin has that can kind of possibly help catapult us to a gold-ish standard in Bitcoin, and why those qualities aren't present in other coins. So I did that blog. I recommend you read it. But if audio is more your thing, then Guy Swan at the Crypt Economy also did a reading of this. So be sure to check him out. He basically scours the web for great Bitcoin articles and makes podcasts about them. So thank you, Guy Swan, for putting that together. Check it out if you want to check out the audio for that. And with that, let's dive into the next topic. Now, if you're getting into Bitcoin, of course, you're going to need a wallet. So what are some good wallets? Now, obviously, you got to understand the differences between custodians and privately held wallets. So, if you're on an exchange, then that's somebody else holding your money for you. If you have a wallet on your phone, then it would be self-custody. Make sure that you're not holding like a Coinbase app, because the Coinbase app, if you're using the exchange, somebody else is holding your money. So you got to start to learn the difference between that. These are 3 self-custody solutions that I recommend for day-to-day use. So number 1, this is probably my most used mobile wallet, Samourai Wallet. Now, it is very, very hardcore Bitcoiner, that's for sure. It is Bitcoin only, which I like. And they've also removed all reference to fiat currency, to dollars, whatever, in the app. It only shows the amount of Bitcoin you hold. So if you have 1 Bitcoin, it shows 1 Bitcoin. It doesn't show how many dollars that is. And they've removed that for a reason. I did do a blog on that. I'll link to that down below as well. But I really like these guys' approach. They're preparing for Bitcoin to be the standard, and I really like that about them. I also find that their wallet is relatively simple to use, especially at face value. Just the regular functions are just all right in front of you. But if you dive into some of the deeper settings, you can get into some more complex features that they've implemented. And so I'll bring that to the next one here, and that is Blockstream Green. This is a redressing of something called Green Wallet that was out before. It's been out for a few months now, and I did do a video on that, so I'll link that down below. By the way, I did do a Samourai video. It's a little bit more dated, but I'll include that as well. Anyways, Blockstream Green, really cool. I like what they're doing with it. It's nice and clean. The UI is really, really fancy looking, and it's not super intimidating, I think, to new users, although maybe you can tell me different or not. They're also adding in stuff like using the Liquid network, which is a side chain of Bitcoin. If you don't understand that right now, don't worry about it. That'll come later. But those of you that do understand, I've been playing around with Liquid network a little bit recently. kind of cool. And one other one I'll recommend here, and this is the HODL Wallet. Again, Bitcoin only, that's what I'm looking for. It has advanced features in it, including the ability to connect to your own node, as the other two did as well. But it is nice and simple enough for a newcomer to use. So check out HODL Wallet as well. So if you've got Bitcoin, or if you've got a Bitcoin wallet, you've done your reading, you understand Bitcoin at least relatively well, you're going to need to buy some Bitcoin. And so I guess this is my opportunity to show the company I work at, which is Bull Bitcoin. This is Canadian only, so if you're not from Canada, hold on a second, I'll get to it. But anyways, yeah, it's a simple exchange. They accept wire transfers, e-transfers, FlexiPin vouchers, Desjardins transfers, which is another type of bank transfer. And yeah, the rates are super transparent and easy to use. And yeah, it's literally where I get my Bitcoin. So they've also implemented some privacy features in the background. And yeah, they've got some other cool services as well, which we'll get into in a minute. So if you're in Canada, check out Bull Bitcoin. If you're not in Canada and you're in the US instead, then I recommend Cash App. Again, simple way to use credit card or whatever you like to buy Bitcoin. And from what I hear down the States, it's pretty much one of the best ways to do it. So check out Cash App if you're in the US. If you're outside of North America, I'm really sorry. I don't want to recommend stuff that I'm unsure of. So you're going to have to look locally and see what's available to you. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit more decentralized, you don't want to give up too much information, then you can check out two of the following. Now, Bisq is a decentralized exchange. It allows you to go peer-to-peer and exchange Bitcoin for whatever, e-transfers, for gift cards, for a lot of different things. So a couple things I would keep in mind here is make sure that the person that you're dealing with, because you are linking with individuals, check your rates. Check the price that they're giving versus what, a spot exchange price, because there could be a premium there. Secondly, check that the person has a history, has good reviews, and hasn't done anything shady, and that they've been around for a little while. And then that should help a little bit there. Just keep in mind that if you're sending somebody your Bitcoin because you're selling and they, do something funny and say that the e-transfer they sent you was fraudulent or whatever, you could be at risk there. So you just gotta be careful. And ditto for HODLHODL, same thing, kind of peer-to-peer. You can see individuals, the offers that they're selling for, and you can exchange with them. Basically the same deal as Bisq. So those are two decentralized options. Now, what about using your Bitcoin and spending it? And this is where I get to go to part 2 of Bull Bitcoin. They have a platform called Bylls. Again, sorry, Canada only, but I will get to some other options in a moment. This allows you to pay any of your Canadian bills, more or less, with Bitcoin. So if you want to pay your cell phone, your internet, your utilities, if you want to send dollars to somebody's bank account, you can do that without actually having a bank account. You can send your Bitcoin through this platform and it will be converted into dollars and sent to your desired recipient. Really cool. We've also got gift cards there that you can purchase as well in the gift cards tab. Same kind of deal. You can purchase Amazon gift cards, Cineplex, whatever. What else do we have for spending? Of course, if you want to book flights, cheapair.com has accepted Bitcoin for quite a while now. Check them out. And you can get deals on Amazon through purse.io. Matches you with individuals that will buy your order for you if you pay them in Bitcoin. And you can set a discount for yourself. You can get some pretty good discounts, up to 33% off in some cases. So check out purse.io. What about some other stuff here? Fold is something I used back in the day quite a bit, and they've added Lightning Network, which we'll touch on in a second. But essentially, you can use Bitcoin to buy a lot of different things like stuff at Amazon, Starbucks, Hotels.com, Target, Burger King, AMC, Macy's, Home Depot, Southwest Airlines. There's a lot on here. It's mostly US based, but I know that some of the gift cards do work here in Canada because obviously I've used them. Starbucks is one of them, but you got to take a look online and just check, can I use, insert company here, US gift cards in Canada? Some of them definitely not, but I know Starbucks works. So Yeah. Also, speaking of spending money, this is not in regards to spending your Bitcoin, but Lolli is a service available only in the US, although they may be expanding, so we'll see. But essentially what it allows you to do is when you're spending money, you can redeem rewards and get paid in Bitcoin for spending your dollars. So instead of like a cashback card, it's Sats back because you're getting Satoshis back. So awesome. I can't wait for these guys to come to Canada, honestly. Really cool thing that they're doing there. And I think that it's kind of that next step to get people interested in Bitcoin. I think it's a great idea. Okay, and let's move on to the next topic. Now, if you have a wallet, you've bought Bitcoin, you've spent it, you've played, you've researched, you're going to need to secure your long-term holdings, and there's a lot of ways to do that. A lot of different hardware wallets out there. Which ones do I use? We're going to go through them right now. The first of which is the Trezor. So I regularly use my Trezor, and I have done a video on the Trezor, both types of them. There's two out there right now, so I will link to those down below. Second one is the Ledger. Now I've done a video on the Ledger Nano S, so I'll link to that down below. I did just get my Ledger Nano X, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. Of course, I've got my Nano S here as well, but keep an eye out for those videos. Again, pretty reliable. They've been around for quite a while. I enjoy these guys. And then what is likely my favorite new Bitcoin hardware wallet, and this is this little calculator looking buddy here. This is the Coldcard. It is Bitcoin only. It is for the most paranoid of you all, and it's a beast of an item, and I did a video on that as well, so I recommend you check out that video and take a look at the Coldcard. For you newbies out there, it may not be super user friendly out the gate, but as you get a little bit more advanced and you start understanding more about Bitcoin, this is likely the path that you'll start heading down. Now, what about privacy? Contrary to popular belief, Bitcoin is not 100% private. In fact, it's not really private at all. It is pseudonymous. And that means that while your addresses are not directly linked to your name off the bat, they can be linked to your name, and actually they likely are if you're using any sort of service. So you use an exchange that has your name and email address connected to it. Guess what? They know where your Bitcoin is. They know how much you have, and people on the outside looking in can decipher that information if they get your data. So that's why it's important to start to focus on privacy, and luckily it is getting easier for users. Things like the Wasabi Wallet allow you to actually mix your coins and commingle them with other people's, which essentially helps break the links between yourself and your coins. Now, keep in mind, you can compromise that privacy down the line as you utilize different services, but I would start to dive into this initially, at least to start to mitigate those risks and start to understand how privacy on Bitcoin works. So I did do a video on the Wasabi Wallet. Feel free to check that out. I think it's well worth watching. And secondly, there's another company, again, beckoning back to the Samourai Wallet reference I made before. They have something called Whirlpool. Now, this does require you to download an application that sits on your desktop and runs in the background, and you connect your mobile wallet to that desktop application. The application has to be running on your desktop in order for this to be working on your phone. So, you know, a little bit extra work on when it comes to this, but this helps keep your anonymity even as you're spending and sending your Bitcoin. So, yeah. Great job from the guys at Samourai. Again, no privacy solution is 100% perfect, but it's best practice to get into understanding some of this stuff. Now, outside of your actual coins, you should also be protecting just your data in general. And so it's a good idea, especially if you want to be very conservative with your privacy. Tor Browser is wonderful. Maybe if you're looking up Bitcoin related stuff and you don't want that to kind of show up on your browsing history and through your IP address, well, Tor Browser can encrypt that data for you. So I recommend you check that out. And secondly, this is one that I use all the time, getting a VPN, a virtual private network, on both your phone and on your computer. And so this, again, it hides your IP address, it encrypts your browsing data, and it has an added bonus of maybe if you have some geo-blocked content you're trying to access, maybe there's a TV show you can't see in your region, you can actually manually change your region so that you can access that content. So I have a deal with these guys where there's an affiliate link down below. If you think that's something you're interested in, you get a deal where essentially it's like $3 a month. So pretty solid there. Now, moving on. What about nodes? Nodes are an important thing. It is essentially running an entire copy of the Bitcoin blockchain. While it's not 100% necessary, it's a pretty good thing to do, in my opinion. It essentially makes sure that you're cross-referencing your transactions and making sure they're valid on the Bitcoin blockchain. You're not pushing that responsibility to another company to check your transactions for you. Your wallet manually does it itself and verifies that you're not being fed misinformation. So very handy thing to have. I have this item in particular, the Casa node, behind me here on the shelf purring away, and baked into that Bitcoin hardware device is also a Lightning Network node. Lightning allows you to transact quickly and very, very cheaply on Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin typically transactions clear in 10 minutes plus, and there can be sometimes fees that could be like $1 or $2 depending on what you're trying to do, sometimes less, sometimes more. With the Lightning Network, to send a transaction is essentially nothing at the moment, like 1 Satoshi, which is a fraction, tiny fraction of a penny. And it's instant. And so this device allows you to access Lightning Network and be running a node yourself on top of a regular Bitcoin node. You can also do that through this little box here, the HODL. Now, I did do a video on the Casa node, so I'll link that below. I have not done one on the HODL yet because I don't have one yet, but that will come at some point in the future. There's a lot of stuff to do there. Now, if you don't want to run a box, you can run a Bitcoin Lightning wallet yourself just on your mobile phone. And I'm only going to recommend this one right now. There's a ton out there, but I like this one at the moment because it is non-custodial. So that means that you are in control of your own Bitcoin. There are other solutions out there that I've done videos on, things like Wallet of Satoshi and Blue Wallet, where by default these wallets are custodial, which means sure you get the benefit of cheap transactions and instant transactions, but it comes at the cost of somebody else actually running the nodes and you basically holding your money for you. You're using a centralized third party to store and send your money. It's super quick, it's super convenient and easy to use, but it does come at a cost, and that cost is giving up custody of your money. And a lot of people, I'd say myself included for the most part, aren't super keen on that in most instances unless there's a major incentive to do so. So yeah, I would check out the Breeze wallet. It's available for iOS and Android, so be sure to check that out. I don't have a video on it, but that is on the queue for something coming up. And so speaking of custody, this is one of the few times that I have actually used custody. And so these guys, the guys at LEDN, are a financial services company based here in Canada, but they're accessible in a number of countries. And so let's talk a little bit about this, because again, I'm sponsored by these guys, and there's a reason why I was okay with that. So what do these guys offer? One, these guys offer loans. So if you have Bitcoin, you can use it as collateral to get a Canadian or US dollar loan. So let's say you need dollars. There's a few instances I can think of where you would want to do this. Maybe you ran into some bad luck. You need to get your hands on dollars, but you do not want to sell your Bitcoin to do so. You could be worried that the Bitcoin will go up in value and you will never be able to buy back the amount you used to have. Also, there's very real tax implications when you sell your Bitcoin. That's a taxable event, and if you have significant gains, then you're going to be taxed on them. And so if you secure a loan against your Bitcoin as collateral, you're not actually selling the underlying asset. It's just sitting there. And so there's no taxable event there in regards to the custody of your Bitcoin. So that could be a deciding factor for you. Now, the other thing that they offer is Bitcoin savings accounts where you can earn Bitcoin on your Bitcoin. So you put your money into an account and you earn interest in it paid in Bitcoin. Now, there's two very real differences between these. The loans, you deposit your Bitcoin into an address, and that address is 100% auditable the entire time. You get to look at the address, see the amount, and it sits there until you pay back your loan and you get it back. So you would see if that money moved anywhere. Whereas, obviously, if you're earning interest on your Bitcoin in a savings account, they're able to pay you that interest because they're utilizing your money to offer financial services and loans to other people. And because of that, you don't get to audit your Bitcoin because it's being utilized, right? And so there's that risk factor involved there. Now, some people would much prefer doing something like this versus trading between a bunch of shitcoins and losing all their money that way. So people that are looking for a return on their Bitcoin, this may be a good option for them. And then others, they may just look at the risk and say, no, I think I'm just going to hodl my Bitcoin and that's good for me. And for anybody, that is entirely your prerogative. Again, the reason that I paired with these guys is because I interviewed one of the guys that is with LEDN, Mauricio Di Bartolomeo, and his family's from Venezuela, and this guy is a fucking boss. He is so awesome, and his story is so compelling. If anybody has a solid understanding of why Bitcoin is important and needs to exist, it's this guy. So I can't recommend enough that you check out the interview with him where he talks about growing up in Venezuela and what happened there over a series of years. It's really, really eye-opening. So definitely check that out. Now, of course, there are other services that do stuff like this. BlockFi is another such company, and they're in the US. And there are other ones out there. I'm not going to mention any others. I'm not quite sure, depending on the locale, but BlockFi I've heard of before as well. So something to look into. Not for everybody, but myself, I use LEDN as a way to speculate. I actually took out a loan and then used the dollars that I got to buy more Bitcoin. I was okay with a little bit of risk there. It was a small percentage of my holdings. So it actually worked out well because I did it earlier this year, and we know what happened to the price of Bitcoin this year so far. And so with that, I'm going to leave it there. I know this was a lengthy one. I had a lot to talk about because we're trying to get people on the right path here and to look into interesting things for them. I hope you found some value in this. I hope that this will help kind of lead you down a path and take you down a ton of different rabbit holes. There's a lot to look into. Again, don't panic if it's too much at first. Start simple, start with some reading and getting a wallet and go from there. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it there. If you're new here, hit like, hit subscribe, hit that share button. I'm really, really hoping to get more eyeballs on stuff like this. If you want to support the show, of course, the two sponsors I mentioned, NordVPN and LEDN, you can hit up those links down below. By the way, the LEDN one, you get $50 of Bitcoin if you end up getting a loan. So, take that for what it is. And outside of that, if you really like what you saw, you can always drop me a tip via the Lightning Network at my tippin.me page. With that, I will sign off. Have a wonderful evening, guys. Great to be back. And I will see you tomorrow for your daily session.